Hi, everyone. All right, well, welcome to Infotech's panel discussion on cloud-based construction administration. We're here with Michigan LPAs and consultants. I'll be your host today. I'm Emily Knoll. I am a senior customer success manager with Infotech. I'm a subject matter expert on Appia, an e-construction management tool that is web-based and mobile-friendly. In my role, I get to help teams implement this solution, and I also advise them on all of the ways that they can use Appia to manage their construction projects. So I've been fortunate enough to work with today's panelists from the City of Bay City and from OHM Advisors. And with that, I will let them introduce themselves. Rachel, would you mind kicking us off?
Hi, I'm Rachel Phillips. I'm the engineering manager for the City of Bay City in Michigan. I have been here about 7 years. I've worked for 2 different DOTs, a contractor, consultants. So I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've really been happy with the product so far.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rachel. And Craig, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, I'm Craig Scripsima. I'm Director of Field Services for Ohio for OHM Advisors. And before there's too many boos out there, I've only been in Ohio for the last couple of years. Prior to this, I worked in our OHM's mid-Michigan offices, working with FieldManager, and for the 25 years working on construction projects. So I understand the market up there.
Craig, thank you so much. Thanks for being here, Rachel and Craig. I know that you also see another Craig on your screen. We had also planned on having Craig Szymborski on our panel today. However, he had a last-minute urgency pop up. Craig is an engineering technician, and luckily he also has worked alongside City of Bay City, Michigan with Rachel. So he was able to provide her with some of his insights on our topics today. And Rachel, just a big thank you for helping to provide our attendees today with Craig's perspective in addition to your own in our session. So now for some housekeeping before we get started. So since this is a webinar, we want to make sure that you can hear each of our panelists and not any unintended office or home office background noise. So attendees, you will be muted. I do want to encourage you to use the Q&A feature. You'll see that button likely located along the bottom of your screen. So following our moderated panel, we'll save some time for your questions, so make sure to send those in to us. And I know that this time of year can be very busy for construction management professionals. If you do have to jump away for any reason, have no fear. We're going to be sending a recording out of this discussion once it's available. And in that, we'll also include a Q&A sheet that will have answers to any of the questions that we aren't able to get to in today's Q&A session. Okay, let's get to it. We have a lot to cover today in our time together. We're going to kick things off with a moderated panel. I'll have some questions for our panelists that center around what inefficiencies their teams were facing and what solutions they implemented to overcome these challenges. We're going to cover topics like what issues offline systems were causing, the cloud-based software that they use for construction administration, and what methods they recommend to improve transparency and access for their project stakeholders. Okay, with that, let's dive into our conversation. So while this discussion is ongoing, panelists, if you have any additional insight, please chime in, but let's get started with the discussion. Okay, so for my first question, what issues made you determine that a new solution was needed? Rachel, I'll hand it off to you first.
Well, we were using FieldManager along with some spreadsheets. FieldManager was mainly for bigger projects. As a city, we also have some very small projects, and it was just very cumbersome. It also didn't help that everything had to be emailed back and forth, the files. So, you know, we had different people working on different things. We never really had the latest update. And, you know, when you get calls at 5 o'clock, you can't exactly call somebody that's already off and say, hey, can you get me updates on these things? Come back in the office. We needed something a little more flexible, user-friendly. And it's also something that, was kind of hard. We had a couple of contractors that knew FieldManager and they had it downloaded and we could send them files, but again, it was kind of cumbersome and a lot of our smaller contractors didn't do that kind of thing. And, it just was, we had a lot of our technicians using spreadsheets and everyone was doing it differently. So.
I hear you. So a really big disconnect on that info and it's on many systems. Thanks, Rachel. Craig, how about from your perspective?
So for me, it really became apparent when we moved to Ohio and we started working on projects down here. So in Michigan, everything was mandated to use FieldManager. So it was pretty much all we tried to use. But in Ohio, there's no mandate on anything. There are a lot of different options. So we tried to use some of our internal things. It really stemmed from a struggle trying to get a complete report. A report that had pictures and tickets and the sketches all in one document. And really made me start looking at what are the options out there. What can track materials? Materials were tracked in separate spreadsheets. Just too many different things and too many different workflows that had to happen in order to really make things efficient. So that was really what got us looking and started us really focusing in on Appia.
Yeah, so I'm hearing there was a need for everything to be in one place.
Yep.
Well, so then how did Appia help to resolve these issues? Rachel, I'm going to turn it back to you for this.
The main thing was that it's live and everyone can see what's happening. The inspectors don't have to go, write everything down, do it twice, come back and enter it all. We don't have to share files. It's all right there. When we get questions from the public, we can get right in, find out any information we need. Even if there isn't a specific report, like FieldManager, it's really easy to look things up. And we're able to share that with all the entities that are on the project. And the reports and the download options are also very good. It helps us to have everything all together.
I love hearing that. Thank you so much, Rachel. Craig, how about for you?
Yeah, for us really is that finding something that can do a complete report. So pictures can be taken via your tablet or your phone and they're linked directly into the daily report. When you take your picture, you can put a little description of what it is you're looking at and it's right there instantaneously. And that helps even from my perspective being in the office, that picture shows up on the web, it's all web-based. I can see that in real time. So we can talk on the same things rather than going texting and back and forth. The other aspect of it is while there's no mandate to use anything, Appia has really taken the initiative to build in the databases with all of the DOT pay items built into it. All of the pre-qualified contractors are there. All of the materials that are associated with your pay items are all built in. So it eliminated that building your own thing all the time. It was in there, but we also had the ability to customize. So if we wanted to add in special pay items, we could do that without an issue. So really trying to get consistent processes and procedures and operations just for our field staff to work on and build on.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Craig. Okay, so what efficiencies did you see with adopting Appia? Rachel, I'll turn it back to you.
It was really nice that our contractors can be involved in this. They have review access, so it doesn't cost them anything. They don't have to download anything. They can just have an account and they can get into their specific project that we assign them to. And the main thing with that is the transparency and the relationships there. They're able to get in real time at the end of the day and see what the inspector put in the IDRs. They can resolve issues in a very short amount of time. For underground projects, that's great because they don't have to wait till they have a problem in their payment to realize that something's already been covered up and you can't remeasure it. We also ask our contractors, we've started requiring it some of our local contracts, that they do have this. And on the IDRs, because everything is tracked so well, when they review it, we ask them to review it within 5 business days, and they'll mark it as reviewed. Then we know that they looked at it, they agree with it. When they go in to review it, if there's a problem, like I said, it triggers them to immediately work through it, and everything's still fresh in everyone's mind. The fact that we can work from any device is huge. To be able to have the tablets out there, the phones, we have laptops, but that just doesn't do all of it. And they have access to everything. I mean, we put our plans, we put our contracts, we pull, so they're not pulling out 5 different documents while they're in the field. We also have several consultants that work for us. We're a relatively small department, so they come in and, they don't have to have the software. They don't have to have the licenses. They come in, they can use one of ours. They're inspectors. It's very easy to pick up, so they can immediately jump in and do it. And we can go back and forth with, sometimes I'm doing, the office work and they're doing the inspection. So we don't have to worry about things being in different offices. It's all right there. The biggest thing I've actually heard about is the transparency from the contractors. And I'll just read you a quote we were going through afterwards, after a project, talking about how we thought it worked very well. It was a contractor that hadn't worked in our city before. And he wrote in his email, "I also really appreciated being included in the IDR approval process. It makes it very easy to pinpoint discrepancies and resolve them. It is something I'll be requesting from other municipalities and inspectors on future projects." And the way he described it was, in all their projects, the inspector kind of holds his quantities and the contractor holds his quantities, and well, show me your hand, no, show me your hand. And it really creates a better work environment because they're working together every day on these things. And, the other thing is, we don't have to finish an IDR, print it out, keep a copy. We don't have 50 other things going on. It's all right there. So
I love that quote. I'm gonna have to note that one, that relationship management piece and ability to have them on the same page. That's huge. Rachel, thank you. Craig, how about from your perspective?
Yeah, I think a lot of the same things Rachel had mentioned, but that ability to create that final complete report by just simply pushing a button was huge, in my opinion. We have several clients that want that report when we have an inspector on the job, and be able to do that and not have to go to the report and then someplace else to print 50 pictures that were taken that day and then combine them into one document. It just, the time savings is huge. And then we tried to outfit all of our technicians with tablets. They all have smartphones, but that ability to work right in Appia, being a web-based, and build that in real time, and then add on to that the speak to text option. That's a huge time saver. Most of our technicians don't want to sit and type all day long. So to be able to just talk about it and while it's going on, while you're standing next to the trench to speak your notes, that's been a huge time saver for the technicians that have adopted that.
That is such a great pro tip. I love that one. Speak to text. Yes. Okay. So then this next question, how have your project managers and inspectors benefited from the platform? Rachel?
Again, it's the ease of use and the convenience, to be able to get into the system. Somebody calls, they're in the field, you're somewhere else, and they say, oh, how do I do this? You can just go in, change a setting, whatever you've got to do immediately. They can, we work exclusively in the city, so we always have great internet, and all of our inspectors and all of our different entities I can check into projects at any time, have the most updated information. I mean, I've kind of mentioned that, but it's really huge when I get someone asking me, hey, where are we with costs for this specific item? You know, to find that quickly is really essential. And the other thing is we really like the way we can look at our pay items, like Craig mentioned, having everything right there, and you know, seeing our work schedule, how everything works. It's just so easy to go back and look at things, and everything is tracked so well, so we know, you know, who's been involved and what's happening.
Awesome, Rachel, thank you. Craig, how about for you?
As I mentioned in the last question, that the whole speak to text option has been huge. The one thing I forget about is the ability to upload all of the project documents right to the project. So the plans, the project manual, your standard details, your addendums, all of those things can be uploaded right into the project. And anybody that has access to that project can see them and right there. So to have the binder of this, and we all still like the paper plans, don't get me wrong, but to have that there and available is great.
I love hearing that Appia is becoming the single source of truth for your projects like that. I know that was a big goal for you. Okay, so then let's talk about project stakeholders. So how have project stakeholders that are maybe outside of your core team benefited from this platform? Rachel?
Again, the contractors are really thrilled with it. But besides even the contractors and our staff and the consultants, we can grant access to our city utilities. Most of our projects include funding from the water department, the sewer department, electric, you know, those kinds of things. And it's all incorporated in there. We separate it out with different funding sources and sections. And for them to say, hey, where am I with this project? Or, you know, what if we have to provide something? Where are they with this? They can go in and see it too. It's read only, it's free, it's easy for them. Go to a website. They don't have to know it ahead of time how to do it. And then, of course, if they ask questions of me, it's easy to find. And this also helped. We've got a couple of grant programs that we've worked with. And, you know, the grant coordinators, they need to see, you know, which addresses we've worked at because of certain restrictions, or how much money they've used so far in this because they have to give a report. They can go in and see what our status is, what our progress is, you know, where everything's been. And it's been very, very helpful as far as building outside of just our team with something that, you know, someone else can't work with.
Rachel, thank you. Craig?
Yeah, I'd say for us, it's been a huge, I don't care what state you're in, the local agency programs is very similar in all states. It's still mandated by the federal highways. So you're still involved, the DOT's involved in the review process. So we've, on one project, we were a large bridge project with one of the local road commissions. We showed them Appia and they went out and bought their own license. And we've been working on the same project via two different licenses, but it's the same project. They're doing the inspection on it. I'm doing the project engineering and some of the office tech work on it. And then we allow the DOT reviewers access to it so they can see the change orders and the documentation that goes with it in real time. And it'll just, the communication has been great from that aspect of it. Just speeds up the, you know, hey, we need this, or can we reword that? And so that's been real positive. And I think the other thing is, there's other people's, there's other project managers, and for us, there's other client reps that interact with various clients. So for them to be able to log up and just look at that first page on the for a project, which gives you a nice summary of where are you at in time, where are you at in the budget, where are you at with those things. That's a great tool for them to see, oh, okay, we're about 70% done with the job, and we spent 60% of the dollars. And I don't have to go out and create that and the little report for them. It's just right there, and they have access to it. So that's been big.
Yeah, that overview page is such a good spot. I love hearing that it's making not only your jobs easier, but also these groups that are adjacent to yours, right? The DOTs, the city utilities. I love hearing that. Thank you.
One more thing on that is, it just came to
please.
mind, sorry, is that I don't know how other places set it up, but our city, our fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30th, which is very unfortunate for construction. So to have everything set up right away, so I can go back and say, okay, this is where we were June 30th, and this is what our costs were. It really makes the switch over for fiscal years much, much better.
Yeah, that timing must be really tricky for the industry, but I love hearing that cutoff is able to be pinpointed for you. Oh, so great. Okay, so this next one, I think this one will just be for Craig, but this has to do with integrations. Do you use any integrations with Appia?
So yeah, we've really just started the Bid Express. We've been implementing that, the electronic bidding aspect of in Infotech. We're introducing a lot of our clients to using Bid Express, and that ability to really take the bids as they come in and then transition them out of that directly into Appia has been great. It really streamlines that bidding process, and now you have a bid tab. You can analyze the bids right there, and it really streamlines that process. We've explored using Doc Express. So Doc Express would be just a kind of a workflow and document sharing site. Again, you can set up workflows with that and say, here's a change order. I'm sending it to the contractor, review it, sign it. It automatically comes back to me and then routes through the thing. We're just really looking into that right now. I want to implement that on a couple of big projects coming forward. And then we're also looking at the Trimble GPS direct link into Appia. We're outfitting our inspectors with kind of hand-me-down GPS receivers from our survey department, along with the data collectors, and then to be able to take your measurements in real time, have it directly linked to the pay item, and then the calculations, the backup, everything's right there and done. That'll be a big deal. We just haven't had the right project to really push that on yet.
Oh yeah, I mean, rover equipment and technology is so exciting right now.
We're for a long time, I think, as an industry, we wondered how is technology really going to help us in construction? And I think it's been it's kind of been mind-blowing what has happened in the last 2 years between Appia and that integration with the survey equipment and e-ticketing and all those things. It's going to be an interesting ride, that's for sure.
Yeah, sure is. So kind of similarly speaking to integrations, are you familiar with the Appia Esri integration? And
that's a new one for us. We have used some other GPS options to go directly into Esri. I'm really wanting to look into that and explore that more, just because that's, I mean, as we are out there inspecting, we're documenting quantities and pay items, but we're also documenting the as-built. So once it's buried, why don't we have the survey shots on it? And then with that, the attributes and pictures and everything else that should just go right up into our GIS. GIS has come a long ways too. So let's make full benefit of that. So
it is so cool. Yeah. How about Rachel, for your team, have they explored any potential use cases for that Appia Esri integration?
Yeah, for the city, we have a pretty detailed GIS system. It's pretty well established for a city, and we've worked really hard in the last few years to keep everything updated. We have all the online apps. We have people available and able to do things right away from the field. We're pushing that a little bit more, and we were looking at it like Craig said, from as-built measurements and the GIS data. We also, the city as a whole, is looking at transparency and that kind of thing. And it's always hard for the public to see what's going on in construction or why something was changed, what we originally said. And obviously, nobody wants to read a bunch of reports, but we have been putting a lot of dashboards on our website. And one of them is an interactive construction dashboard where, we have our 6-year project build out. They can filter between different, things like that. But we do weekly updates in there, and to be able to put things in GIS and Esri, which we run these dashboards from Esri. And so we're looking at that and how we can do that and bring more transparency and make it easy now that people are actually using websites and things like that. We're trying to find ways so that it's user friendly to the public to be able to see what we need to do as well.
That is so cool. Thank you so much. Well, for our moderated panel, those were all of the questions I had. So let's do a little recap. Craig, Rachel, thank you for your answers to those questions. For the attendees, we are going to get to those Q&As in just a moment. But before we do, I'd really love to briefly recap some highlights from our conversation, and there were many. So we discussed the issues that led to your need for a cloud-based solution. My panelists called out the inability to see the most up-to-date information. There was a real disconnect on the info. The need for a tool that was more user-friendly and that would allow for better collaboration, and that it was really difficult to get a bigger picture of what was happening on projects. We also covered the wide range of benefits experienced by your inspectors, your project managers, and your contractors when you made the move to Appia. This included improved communication, greater visibility of what's going on the project, ease of reporting. You had some really great call outs about how immediately that reporting can be pulled out. Rachel, I loved your anecdote on the fiscal year and just how hard that typically would be and how immediately you can pull that reporting. A streamlined process for your workflows, having kind of a centralized place for all of your project data, that web-based single source of truth that everyone has that access and collaboration to. And then, not just those groups that I mentioned, but all the ways that your stakeholders had access to project info immediately. And then we close things out talking about integrations with our panelists and what they've used and explored with Appia, things like integrations with our e-bidding tools, GIS data for increased efficiency. So thank you all so much. Okay, so let's get to those questions that have been coming in. And then as a reminder to everyone that's attending, if you have questions along the way, add them to that Q&A chat. Okay, so this first one that I have. All right, the panelists talked about what problems they were looking to solve. How did they or someone else within your organization decide that Appia was the best solution, and how did you go about purchasing it? So I know we talked about kind of the problems, the benefits, but what about that time in between when you're making the purchasing decision? Craig, I'll start with you. I'll switch it up.
So yeah, we explored a lot of different options out there. We did several demos with I think you were probably involved in some of the early demos, Emily, and looked at those things. For me, it was the web base was critical, and then that kind of all in one spot, information was critical for me. I'm a believer in trying to have consistent tools. We've all been in the scenario where, okay, this inspector knows how to use Ashtoware. This one knows how to use FieldManager. This one doesn't. Well, I want something that I can use on all of my projects. I don't care what the funding source or where it's coming from, just so we all know the same protocols and procedures. So that ability to customize it, but yet still have all of the databases and stuff in there was critical. And plus, ODOT, while they don't go out and say, hey, Appia is it, and that's what we're going to use, they have come out and say that any document that comes out of Appia is acceptable to us in FHWA. So that was key too.
Awesome. Thank you, Craig. Rachel, how about for your team?
Like Craig said, we did the same kind of thing. We looked at some demos, some other projects. And like I said, our main problem was we were using different programs for different types of projects. We had some larger projects, we had small projects, some were MDOT and LEP, and some were completely local or a different grant. And, FieldManager didn't have all our needs, and, spreadsheets didn't follow all our needs. And we really liked that Appia could cover a wide range of projects and could cover some of the problems that we've had with the other software. And it was so easy to learn. Even some of our people that, aren't overly computer savvy and things like that. I mean, it was so easy for them to jump in. So, when one of my technicians was doing the research on this, and he said, "Hey, I want you guys to look at this one," and I all really liked it. So that was what we were looking for, was to help us with our needs, and we got a lot more benefits out of it than we even expected.
I'm always happy to hear that. Okay, so this one, I know we've talked a little bit about your experience with FieldManager. This is going to pull in ProjectWise. I'm not sure if you're both familiar or have experience with that, but the question is, so would you say that Appia is an improved program that kind of combines FieldManager and ProjectWise? I'll switch it this time. Rachel, I'll start with you first.
I would say short answer, absolutely. We've talked about FieldManager, and I was with MDOT for 13 years, and we used FieldManager there, and we also used ProjectWise. And I was actually on the steering committee when we started getting ProjectWise, and I really loved the accessibility of everything. Once I came to the city, we had a couple of consultants that were running things, and the way they ran it, we accessed their system through ProjectWise, and it was a little bit cumbersome to do it that way. This being cloud-based is a lot easier. We don't have to worry about file structure so much, as it's right there. And Craig was talking a little bit about the Doc Express, and I just noted that I need to check into that a little bit more, where he was talking about workflows. So I'm not going to speak to that, but that's one of the benefits to ProjectWise. And ProjectWise is also very expensive. And when I approached Bentley 7 years ago about ProjectWise for the city, they asked how many people would be involved. When I gave them the number, they're like, yeah, it's not going to be cost effective. So to be able to do all of this and still have the benefits of ProjectWise, it is really, really nice.
Yeah, Craig, how about for you? Thanks, Rachel.
I will give you kind of a wishy-washy. I would say yes and no. From the yes aspect of it is everything's right there in one spot. And in Appia, FieldManager was just FieldManager. You had the quantities and your daily reports, and that was pretty much it. So all of your plans, all of your contract document, your change orders, all of that stuff were in ProjectWise. So you had to go different places or hard copies. Where in Appia, everything that I need to build that project can be in Appia, and it's accessible. Now, Appia is not a workflow software. It will house all your stuff. It will house all your information. This is where ProjectWise or Doc Express, either one. There's where you can get your workflows. You can send it to the contractor for signature. You can send it to the DOT office for the various signatures. That's where that workflow document sharing program, you still need one, either ProjectWise or Doc Express.
Awesome. Thanks, Craig. Yeah, and Rachel, you had mentioned Doc Express for our attendees that might not be familiar with it. It's our document routing and retention software. And yeah, it's very cool. So, okay, so this one, I know we've mentioned web-based quite a bit. So it says web-based is great when you have internet access, but not every project location has a strong signal. How have your teams handled that? So Craig, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so this is very much similar to FieldManager. You have the ability to work with Mobile Inspector. So mobile inspector, is your phone or mobile option. Appia works with the same way. So you can download anywhere you don't have web access, you can, the project can be assigned to that. So as you're storing things and doing things on it, on mobile inspector, once you do have internet access, it uploads it automatically. So you have that option to utilize both. And it really is the same, it's the same tool. So it is something familiar that if you're using mobile inspector, right now, you won't notice the difference.
Great, thank you, Craig. Rachel?
I'm just gonna go with Craig's answer on that. Like I said, being in the city, we really don't have that come up. So I was interested to hear what he had to say about it, actually.
Yeah, I love that. Mobile inspector is a very cool tool to get to use. Okay, so I have another one. This one has to do with, and I think we've touched on it a little bit, but maybe in more detail. So what was it like for you to get started using Appia? How long did it take? Who was involved? How did you roll it out within your organization? So I guess kind of that that change management piece of learning Appia. Rachel, you first.
It was very user friendly. You know, I've got a wide range of staff. Some are, you know, young and very computer savvy. A few of them did not grow up with computers and are not thrilled with computers and are maybe a little set in their ways. But this was really easy and they accepted it very well. And what really helped was, and again, I think Emily, you're a part of this, was, you know, Infotech really sat down with us right at the beginning and went through everything. And, you know, we had 2 different sessions, I believe, on that. And then, you know, also in between, we wrote up a list of questions and some unique situations that we have that maybe other cities have. And a lot of it had to do with the smaller projects. And we do a lot of fixed cost variable scope, where we have a grant and we can go to a certain point and we go through all of that. I apologize. And then, yeah, it was very helpful for Infotech to work with us on that. And, you know, some of the pushback that I might be getting, I said, hey, you know, put that as a question. And next time we meet with them, absolutely. And I really appreciate the way that your team worked with us to say, okay, well, this might be a workaround, or this might be something we implement. And we had a very good relationship starting. And I think that was huge about getting everyone on board and getting started right away with it and not having to roll it in over a couple of years.
Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, I know the feelings were mutual. We loved getting to work with your team too. So Craig, how about for you?
Yeah, for us, so we've got a very, very large construction group in Michigan and a little bit smaller group here in Ohio. So rather than saying, hey, we're going to make a massive change, and Michigan is still kind of running with FieldManager and their things, we decided that let's test the change. Let's see how it works. Let's do it in a smaller group here in Ohio to try to implement that. And so that was kind of our drive on that, and to make the change. Nobody likes change, so there's always some people that will resist that. But the implementation process has been great. I was just telling somebody the other day, both with Appia and BidExpress, getting to learn those and implement those. Your support is not, you know, a massive support group where you get a different person every day. Literally, I think everything that I've dealt with Appia has been directly through you, Emily, and kind of going back and forth, and you get to be on first name basis with your support people, and you email them back and forth. And I have to say the same thing between Adele and Shanna on BidExpress. They've just been, it can be a stupid question that I just forgot how to do something, and I send it off and I'll get an email, you know, a half hour later, bam, here's what you do. Or hey, let's just jump on a quick Zoom call and I can walk you through that again. That has been wonderful. From a customer support and implementation standpoint, I've never had that experience before.
Well, I love hearing that. Yeah, I mean, I genuinely get to work with such a great team and such great customers. So it's a treat. Okay, so this next question, actually, this might be one that I can answer a little bit easier, but the question is, how much does Appia and Doc Express cost? So actually, Chris, who's helping out on this, he's going to post in the chat a link that'll take you to the Appia pricing guide. And that's also a spot where you can reach out to our account managers. They can walk through any of that with you. They can schedule a demo. They're just as much fun to work with as our implementation team, I promise. And then to answer the second part of that question, Doc Express is a tool that's actually included with your Appia license. So everything will be answered there for you. We are actually, we're kind of right where we want to be time-wise. And I think we covered all of the questions that came in, which is great. So before we wrap things up, I do want to share something new. So if you're interested in reading stories that break down industry trends and ideas, you can check out Deconstructor. It's our industry newsletter that launched in July of this year, so very recently. Featuring thought leadership stories, best practices, webinar opportunities, and more. Deconstructor goes live every quarter. You can sign up using the web address that you see on the screen. Similarly to the pricing guide, we've added that URL to the chat so you can copy it. And we'll also be including it in a link to the follow-up email that you'll be receiving following this webinar. All right, thank you again to everyone that joined us. Craig, Rachel, it is always a treat to get to talk to you. And I want to thank you today, Craig Scripps-Sema from OHM Advisors and Rachel Phillips from the City of Bay City, Michigan. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. And we appreciate it so much.
Thank
Well,
you, Emily.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks. If you're ready to explore how Appia can work for you, you can find out how at infotechinc.com/Appia. So lastly, after this webinar ends, you'll all be redirected to a brief survey that's going to help us improve our future webinars. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Bye.